Hello, my name is Nori Nishigaya. I'm part of the Andamio team, and I'm recording today the closeout video for our Fund 12 proposal, the Andamio Purpose Sidechain Layer 2 concept. So for this proposal, we submitted this under the concept category because we wanted to do an experiment to see if a sidechain could be set up easily. Can it be used to reduce transaction costs on a sidechain, possibly even to zero? Or can we speed up transactions? So this experimentation and trying to do a use case around a sidechain seemed to fit this category really well. So we are happy to have been voted in, and the approach we took for this particular proposal was to set up infrastructure and software to run a purpose sidechain. So a sidechain is essentially Cardano node, but rather than being run in the network of SPOs that runs mainnet or even testnet, we ran it on a single node on often a local developer machine or in the cloud in a private instance where multiple developers within the team could use it together. But it was basically a private, small, purpose-created sidechain that used the entire Cardano to run. And then we ported existing smart contracts to the sidechain. Andamio platform has a number of smart contracts that run our contribution management, token minting, and we ported those over to see how they worked. And then we ran some tests to see how well they worked and if there are any changes that were needed to support the sidechain. So the project details itself. The milestones we engaged in were to set up the infrastructure. And we use this mainly using YASI from Mesh to run a sidechain locally using a Docker or a test environment. And then we ported our specific contracts for token minting and our validators, which included treasury, escrow, contribution management. In total, there were 7 contracts that we migrated to the sidechain. Through the testing of it, we found that no changes were needed for running of the contracts on the sidechain, which is a really great result. But the one big issue that we did run into were providers like Maestro weren't available on a purpose sidechain. They're just set up to run on Cardano mainnet or testnet. So we had to create our own API. And again, we used Mesh YASI to interact with the validators on the sidechain, and we're to create our own API calls to be able to query the sidechain and get data back out and things like that. So that's something that we definitely need to look at if you're setting up a sidechain. Is some of the mainstream API tools that you're using may not support the sidechain unless they're purpose developed to help support sidechains, and the current ones out there aren't. So we had to do our own. For a demo, we have a link here into GitHub, our Andamio platform sidechain playground. I'm just going to take you through that link really quick. But we have a report markdown file here where we have like the different deployment results where we minted our sidechain admin, and you can see the code execution through the cabal command, the details of the CBOR hex representation for the smart contract, and then a screenshot of the deployment results and the transaction JSON that was returned from that. And then you can see that we did it for Mint sidechain decider and Mint test gimbals, et cetera, and the contract tokens. And then there are a number of screenshots in the Git repository that map to that document, so you can see them all in context in the main document here. We do have the mainnet comparison markdown document here where we really wanted to see if there were any significant changes to mainnet. And these are all of the different reports based on that as we ran our tests. So you can look at this. We found as there were no real differences aside from speed and of course transaction costs since it was on the sidechain. And for reference, we also provided the YASI logs. So this is the tool we use to stand up the sidechain and interact with it. And this is a log of all of the different things that happened as we ran things on the sidechain. And we have a whole list of things here around exploring and implementing solutions for a robust two-way peg mechanism. And this is a really big one for us. Is you operate on a sidechain, eventually you want to get the data on the sidechain onto mainnet again. And so this is something that we didn't get to or explore. So this is something we want to try next, is how do we get that kind of two-way peg mechanism so we can bridge back and forth between sidechain and mainnet. It's less cost, it's faster, but being able to bring that data back to mainnet is super important. And we're going to continue refactoring efforts on the Andamio platform so we can fully support interaction with the purpose sidechain, primarily around the API calls needed, since our existing solutions for that only work on mainnet. And evaluating the feasibility and benefits of deploying purpose sidechain for specific use cases, considering our observed improvements for speed and efficiency, and then looking at alternatives and Cardano-based scaling solutions like Hydra or other things that may be more appropriate for specific use. Thank you so much.